Okay, so the part that you should be familiar with is finding the circumference of a circle. Okay, the circumference of a circle is the equivalent to finding the perimeter of any other polygon. So circumference is the distance around the circle. Depending on what you're given, you might have a diameter or you might have a radius. The radius is just half of the diameter. But they give you two formulas based on what you have. I don't know. Myself, I prefer to just use pi times the diameter because it's quick. It's just the diameter attached pi. And if you know the radius, to get the diameter, you double it. Okay? So one of the formulas for circumference is pi times diameter. Okay? It is a length, so that is regular units. The other formula is 2 pi r, but as I said a moment ago, to find the diameter, that's just twice the radius. So if you have a diameter, it's very quick, just attaching pi. That is, again, circumference is in units. The one thing you want to watch for, and depending on what your purpose is in finding it, is if I want it to be precise, I leave pi in my answer. If I want a decimal that I'm going to turn around and use, for instance, say you're finding the area of something circular because you're going to turn around and paint it, and you want to know how much paint you have to buy. Well, you're not going to be able to look at a paint can and have it say, this will cover 5 pi units. That's not going to happen. It's going to tell you how many units are, you guys understand what I'm getting at. If you want it to be precise because you're going to use it in another problem, leave it precise, leave pi in the answer. The directions will tell you that, and as usual, we'll defer to whatever the directions say. So if it says leave your answer in terms of pi, then you just leave it in terms of pi. If it says round to the nearest tenth, you're going to multiply the number times pi and get a decimal. All right, so just a quick example before we say what we're going to use this for. If you have a bicycle wheel with a 22-inch diameter, now this question, the book says, how many revolutions does the wheel make when the bicycle travels 100 feet? Well, one revolution is just the circumference, right? So we need the circumference. So if our circumference is pi times diameter, that would be pi times 22. And because we're dealing with 100 feet, you're not going to want to leave this in terms of pi. So you're going to do 22 times pi. Your calculators have a pi key. Use it. Don't generalize to 3.14. Your calculators will take care of that, and then you can round as needed. So 22 pi comes out to be 69.1150. Okay, that is your circumference of the wheel. So if you want to know how many times it will go around in 100 feet, we're going to do 100 divided by one length of the tire, right? So divided by 69.115. Which is 1.446, so about 1.4 revolutions. Oh, hold on, back up. What did I miss? Units. This is inches, that's feet. Okay, so we need to go back. I realize that in 100 feet, the bike tire is not going to go around 1.4 times, right? That doesn't make sense. And that's what you should be doing too. If your answer does not make sense, go back and see what you missed. I need to convert feet to inches. So how do I do that? Times 12, right? So 100 feet, there's 12 inches per foot. So this actually should be 1,200 inches, because I'm dividing by inches. So 17.36, 17.4, does that sound better? The bike tire will go around 17.4 times in 100 feet. I encourage you, when you're doing real life problems like that, to look at your answer and see, okay, what did I just find? What does this mean? Does it make sense? I immediately caught my mistake because in 100 feet, the bike's going to go around more than once, the tire, right? So if you look at your own answers, you're probably going to know if you're on the right track. All right, so moving on from just circumference. We need to discuss arc length, okay? Not to be confused with arc measure. The arc measure is the same measure as the interior angle, right? That's easy. There's really, unless you're trying to add two arcs together, there's not much calculation involved. Arc length, however, it's a fraction of the circumference. Okay, it's a portion of the distance around the circle. So say I have a circle and I have arc AB and I want to find the length of AB.
Are they just two lines, or are you trying to make it 90 degrees?
No, they're just two lines. Okay. So if I want to find the length of AB, that is part of my circle, right? Well, here's your formula. The length of AB is a fraction of the circumference. Okay. Well, your fraction would be what portion of 360 we're talking about, right? Yes? Kind of like a pie chart. Say that this is, just to make it easy, say this is a 90-degree angle. Well, this portion of the circle is 90 degrees out of 360, right? So, in general, for arc length, I want you to kind of start out by saying, okay, I need a fraction of my circumference. The fraction is how many degrees out of 360 I'm dealing with. We already dealt with this before. What does of mean? Times. And the circumference is with the formula 2 pi r or pi d, so whichever one you need for circumference. Okay, so for this circle, if I want that, okay, I also need one other piece of information. I can't find the circumference without a radius. So let's say this radius is 8. Okay, so I'm going to go here and say, okay, 90 out of 360, and some of you might already know, oh, 90 is a fourth of the circle, right? A right angle is a fourth. You can do that too. But 90 out of 360 times 2 pi r, or if you're like me and you like to use the diameter, I know that the diameter is 16, so I do 16 pi. I can do that as well. So the rest is how you want to solve. We're going to leave our answer in terms of pi. So we're going to put pi at the end. Since 90 out of 360 is 1/4, now you can use your calculator, but if you don't have it, 1/4 of 16, can you do that in your head? Is 4. So my arc length for AB should be 4 pi in terms of pi. If I needed it to the nearest tenth, I do 4 times pi in my calculator. And let's call that inches. Since that is a length, this would be in inches. All right, so we're going to do just a couple examples. This would be very similar to what we just did. Nope, actually too similar. Let's change this to 10. And we're going to make this 80 degrees. All right, so it's a fraction of your circumference. So where do I get the fraction? Yep, 80 over 360 times, what's my circumference? 10 pi, yep. And you can put the 10 last. I mean, I know it's pi d, but if you're leaving your answer in terms of pi, might as well throw that on the end instead. Okay, so you're going to want to figure out 80 out of 360. Let me double check real quick and see. Okay, your answers should not be decimals attached to pi. Okay, simplified fractions. So, did you guys realize the easiest thing here, if you have 2 zeros, you can knock those off right away, right? In simplifying? Because that's just dividing the 10 out, getting rid of that. So you're really simplifying 8 out of 36. What's the biggest number that goes into 8 and 36? 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2/9. Right? Times 10 pi. Once you get it to this point, what do you actually multiply? You multiply 2 times 10, 9 times 10, both? Just 2, right? So this would be 20 pi over 9 is the most precise answer. Okay, nothing rounded.